everybody. Welcome to the Talking Disney podcast. This is the show where we are taking a look at the Disney canon and we let the random number generator tell us what we are going to be talking about. And today is episode 59. We're almost done. Only one episode left. We're finished reviewing all of the classic films, which is amazing.
It is amazing. Where did time go, Rachel?
I don't know. And to mark this special, if you're noticing it maybe sounds a little different, we are together.
In person.
Yes. Yay. For this momentous occasion of the podcast. And we're talking about Peter Pan today.
Yeah, the random number generator. I mean, it's interesting how it works. That Peter Pan is our last one that we get to, or the number generator gets to pick.
Yeah, and this was from 1953, and I think it's going to be a really interesting one to talk about. This is the 14th Walt Disney Animated Studios film, and I think it's going to be interesting one to talk about because it's one of those ones that's such an important part of the Disney brand and Disney name, and yet does it hold up? So that's going to be interesting to discuss. But
yeah, definitely.
So this film was released in 1953. And we always sort of start out talking about our first memories of this film. Do you remember when you first watched it?
So I don't remember, and I was trying to look up, because back in the day, Disney used to re-release their animated films about every 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would have seen either probably the third or fourth re-release of it, and I just don't necessarily remember when. However, we had the soundtrack, and we also had picture book, children's books that were Disney made, that were from, so they had their art, their art and stylistic approach. And I just remember that book. It was one of my all-time favorites, the Disney Peter Pan picture book. I loved it. I think it was made in conjunction with Golden Books, but it was bigger. The one we had was a bigger book, but it was still published by Golden. Mm-hmm. I think I've seen either replicas that have come out since then, or I've definitely seen some of the art anyway. I loved it. And then don't get me started about Disneyland. We can talk about that in a minute. But
yeah, I don't remember watching this one that much growing up. I mean, I certainly had seen it, but I was always sort of more into the princess movies, princess stories, Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty especially. And then once Little Mermaid came along, then that won over my heart.
Yeah.
But I certainly, since you mentioned Disneyland, I remember Peter Pan's flight and going to the right. That was that an original same day, original opening day attraction?
Opening day attraction. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and it's still, we had talked about it before, but it is one of the most popular rides to this day.
Yeah, definitely, like the one with consistently longest line.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a short ride. It's such a small ride, but it's still, it just packs the wall up. I love it so much. I think that's where really my love of Disneyland really got solidified, because I think particularly because of the way that the ride system works on Peter Pan, how the track is above you, so there's this real sense of flight, which is unusual, with I think with many rides, particularly the dark rides. It just felt like I was in the movie, and I love that feeling so much.
Yeah. Now, is the Peter Pan's flight, is it the same in Disney World versus Disneyland?
It's very similar. Some stylistic changes, but it's basically the same thing. You get in the pirate ship, the track's overhead, you fly through the Darling's bedroom, and whatnot. One thing that they have differently at Disney World, Disney World has the gift of space that Disneyland doesn't have. So they added an extended queue, which I've never been. I've just seen pictures of it, that has, you actually go through the Darling's bedroom. You walk through it, and they've got a shadow effects and Tinkerbell, like just you see just her trail of pixie dust, as she flies around the room, and there's different things you can interact with. I hear it's super fun. I've only the last couple times I've been to Disney World, I've had a fast pass at Peter Pan, which they do. You know, they did. They've never offered
Do you
that at
know,
Disneyland.
is Peter Pan, is that one of the fancy rides? They pay for extra rides?
I don't know if they're doing that with that new genie system because I think they probably could, given its popularity, but I just don't know if they're going to offer. You know, that I don't know.
Yeah,
they probably should.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I the last 2 times I went to Disneyland, I did not go on Peter Pan's flight. It just didn't feel worth it to me.
It's like an hour, 45 minutes to an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just in that little teeny cramped line, and yeah, it is what it is, but
right,
it's rough.
Yeah, but it's definitely iconic, and I love me a dark ride, and so I think those are my favorites.
Oh, for sure.
And
it's my favorite ride there.
Yeah, my favorite is the Haunted Mansion, but I love the dark rides. They're really fun. But yes, this movie, I think the biggest strength to it is just how beautiful it is. The animation is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Just, Disney animation at its peak, really there in the 50s and at least of that time period. It's just so beautiful. I know it resonated with me as a kid just because of the adventure. I just it's so cool. They get to go hang out with pirates and the Lost Boys and Skull Rock and mermaids are there and all this stuff. Yeah.
It does have a lot of a spirit of adventure about it that I think is really fun, and I actually really enjoy the music. I think it's really good.
The songs that I could watch that sequence where they're flying to Neverland, from London to Neverland, just over and over and over. There's nothing that makes you feel better. That's another one of the things I that I love about the queue at the Disneyland ride is they play that movie music in the queue.
Oh yeah,
and that just always happy triggers.
Yeah, and I it was interesting the first time I saw the play, the musical, the one for that was for Mary Martin, that I was disappointed because I'm like, these aren't the same songs.
I know. Exactly.
But I really like. I think it's much better than the musical on Broadway. I love the songs in this.
Yeah, I do too.
Second Star to the Right is probably my favorite, and I think it has definitely a feeling of When You Wish Upon a Star. I think they're very similar.
Yeah,
but this was originally they had thought about doing Peter Pan for when they were thinking about Snow White.
Yeah, Walt Disney had it in his mind for many years, right? Before they actually before it really decided to go for it.
Yeah, and then it got picked up by the after the war, and then they cut everything down except for 3 projects: Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan. So those were in development, and he greenlit Cinderella first, and then brought back Peter Pan. And I think that there's definitely a sense of sort of magic and hope about the story that you could imagine that in the 50s would have been very appealing.
Yeah.
For sure. It starts out with Wendy getting kicked out of the nursery. And we have her mean old dad, Mr. Darling.
It was just had it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think we can all relate.
Yeah.
Especially when he's tripping over all the toys.
I know, the toys and and his cufflinks were used as the buried treasure.
Yes.
The boys were playing pirates. And
do you know how old Wendy is supposed to be in this movie?
I don't. I've always assumed that she was around 12. But honestly, that's just making that up in my mind. I have no idea what
that makes sense.
What
and
they thought, what
that would make sense of why she needs to leave the nursery,
right?
if she's
She's
12.
like kind of right at that age where
Mhm.
yeah, she's not a child, but she's.
Yeah.
I mean, today we'd call it a tween, right?
Right. Yeah.
But
And she's voiced by Catherine Beaumont, who was also the voice of Alice.
Alice in Wonderland, yeah.
And I love her voice. I think she's
isn't
so
she
great.
Yeah,
And
she's perfect.
especially when she does Your Mother.
Your Mother and Mine. Yeah.
I think that's she has such a beautiful timbre to her voice. Mm-hmm. Gorgeous. And I love, and I know this is in the original play, but I really love Nanny the dog. Nana the dog.
Nana the dog.
So cute.
Is just the most adorable. And they do such a nice job animating Nana, I think, too. Mm-hmm. I just love, yeah. This is great.
Sorry. Yeah, and I really like that. I also like the personalities they gave the two boys. I think they're really cute. And from what I was reading is that they were going to get rid of John Darling, but because he was seen as too serious. But I kind of like that. I think it's cute.
Well, I do too. Yeah, and I like how he's got the top hat and the umbrella that he takes with him to Neverland. Mm-hmm. You know, he's just this proper British gentleman. You know, growing mm-hmm. up.
And so we have this whole sequence with that's in the play, the original play, with Wendy having Peter's shadow. And I think that is a really fun part. I almost like this opening better than some of the other once they get to Neverland parts.
Yeah.
I just really, it's such a sweet, whimsical whole section, and the idea of her wanting to put they're putting on the he's putting on the shadow with soap.
Yeah.
And so she sews it on the shadow, and we have the introduction to Tinkerbell. And I would say that's one of the biggest things to come out of this movie for the Disney Studios is Tinkerbell. I mean, she's one of the most iconic characters.
Absolutely. And, you know, how Disney chose to use her as to introduce the TV show and stuff, you know, in the 50s and whatnot. Yeah, I agree with you. And what's kind of interesting is that, you know, her character in the movie, she's just mostly driven by jealousy.
Yeah.
You know, which isn't necessarily the most flattering thing, but she's still, I agree with you, she's such a great character.
Yeah, in the play, she is poisoned. She dies in the play. So they did, and evidently they were going to do that at first, but then they decided to not do that.
Not do it.
Which was pretty smart.
Which was a good call.
But she does betray pretty bad, and she tries to kill Wendy.
Exactly.
So, yeah, she's not this, like, I don't know, sweet character like you get in the series.
She's not. Yeah, she's very different than what they made her up to in these fairy movies that we've been watching for our you know,
Disney rankings. Yeah.
Because I don't think I'd ever would have watched them other, you know, if it weren't for the rankings. So.
Yeah, I wrote down Tinkerbell is an angry tink.
Perfect.
But yeah, the arc that goes over the castle in the Disney logo is put on by Tinkerbell.
Tinkerbell. Yeah.
So she's up there with Mickey and Minnie, I think, is one of the iconic characters.
She's a very iconic character.
Mm-hmm. And then we have the treatment of Peter. Then we have the treatment of Wendy by Peter. And, you know, he says, girls talk too much. Get on with it, girl. And we do have a repeated theme in this movie of everyone hates Wendy. Why does everyone hate Wendy? She's so sweet and kind, and everybody wants to kill her or tell her to shut up.
You bring up a very good point, Rach, because, you know, Peter, in so many ways, is not, I mean, he ends up being heroic but I think the way he treats Wendy is kind of abysmal.
Yeah,
And
he tells her to shut up, and then she talks too much, and then the mermaids try to kill her, and the Lost Boys try to kill her.
He doesn't really intervene.
He thinks it's funny.
Yeah. But anyway, and then other times, she's like kind of a full on partner, but then as we know near the end too, Peter gets so mad he just lets it go. I mean, I guess emotions are real in this movie, right? Everyone's got pretty strong emotions.
I think when they do the David Lowery Peter Pan that they have planned, I'm assuming that they will treat that a little bit differently.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I'm sure they're going to be making a lot of changes for sure.
So then we have the "You Can Fly" song, which is, as we said, delightful.
Absolutely, it's just pure delight.
Yeah, it's so good. And then we first go to the pirate ship when we get to Neverland. And then we get A Pirate's Life for Me, which is so much fun.
I love, I think that the kind of the slapstick comedy between Captain Hook and Mr. Smee is really fun.
Yeah.
I think Captain Hook is such a good villain in that he's menacing yet also kind of bumbling at the same time. And then of course he's so hot tempered. I don't know. I think he's just one of the great Disney villains for sure.
Yeah. And they use the slapstick humor, I think, probably as good in this movie as in any Disney movie.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
it works.
The whole thing with him and the crocodile is hilarious.
It's hilarious. The quote unquote physical comedy, because we know it's all animated, but just the way that they animate it, how Captain Hook interacts with the alligator, with the crocodile, is so funny.
Yeah,
so clever.
Yeah, especially that whole scene in the cave. Yeah, where it's literally like he's literally kind of riding.
Yes.
And Hans Conried is the name of the voice actor, and he crushed it. He is so good as Captain Hook.
He also voices Mr. Darling, which is kind of a classic, I think.
Yeah.
Thing with Peter Pan. I think that Mary Martin play does that, and
in the original play, I think that's the case. And
he crushes it.
He's so good, and I think that this song is really fun. I mean, it's the first thing. I mean, aside from this song and Yo-Ho, Pirate's Life for Me are the two, when you think of pirates, that's the first things you think of. So it's true. Iconic. And when Smee shaves the bird, I die.
Oh,
it is hilarious.
I love that.
It's so funny.
That's comedy gold right there.
Also, it gets pretty dark. Like when he shoots that guy.
Oh.
Shooting a man.
That's the thing where, it's like kind of ha-ha, but then like Captain Hook is business.
Yeah.
He is a bad dude.
Smee says shooting a man in the middle of his cadenza. Not good form. Good form. Yeah.
That was a great line.
And then Smee, I never shaved him this close before. And he's like, come on. That is so funny. I love that whole scene.
I love Mr. Smee.
Yeah.
Too. Again, just great. In a way, I thought that, just how, stuff kind of comes and goes sometimes when you're watching these movies. Mr. Smee reminded me a lot of what they tried to do with LeFou in Beauty and the Beast. I thought LeFou overall was pretty funny, even though he gets abused, horribly abused. It's a horrible relationship, but it's funny. For me, the physical comedy works.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a good comparison. I can see that. And then you have this is when the Lost Boys, Tink tells the Lost Boys to shoot the Wendy bird down.
Oh my goodness.
And then we get, that's when Tink gets banished. So she's very upset.
So she's ticked, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we get the Following the Leader song,
Yeah.
which I had forgotten was in this.
And that's a fun sequence.
Yeah, it is.
Fun animation. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Following
And a fun
the
song. Yeah. I
Yes.
like that a lot.
Me too. And then we pretty much everything involving the Indians is modern day cringe.
It's so politically incorrect.
So-
You know, I mean, it's one of those. It gets a warning on Disney Plus. You know, before, as it should,
right?
As it should, because it's
Like
not.
I think even then there were people that were like, but yeah, it definitely does not hold up now. You know, what made the red man red, and you know, them talking about how the Indians aren't intelligent. All of that is super cringe.
Yeah, yeah. It's problematic for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, definitely. I think you bring up a good point. You know, you wonder how it really was viewed by most people of the time period.
Mm-hmm.
If then in the 50s it was pushing it on taste, you know. But
yeah, I mean, I guess in fairness, they're not Native Americans here. They're Native Americans to Neverland.
Yeah.
So they're not specifically, I guess, mocking a particular, you know, kind of thing. Right. But it certainly is just something you would never, for good reason, you would never see today. And you know, now they make such an effort, even in a fantasy world like with Encanto or with Moana, that they have these cultural trusts. And
right.
Like that's one thing in animation is film that the director talked about, the Colombian Cultural Trust for Encanto, and how that was such a you know, a reservoir of knowledge and helpfulness for them. And I think that makes makes the films better that they have. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with this David Lowery version.
Yeah. If the Indians are just skipped, or they do some other kind of indigenous people to Neverland, you know, or something. Yeah.
Because the last Peter Pan that we got, I mean, we had that Wendy one, but that was different. That was modern. But the last one was that Pan.
Oh yeah,
Joe Wright. And I know that movie wasn't a good movie, but it got a lot of flack for the fact that they had Rooney Mara as Tiger Lily. And one of the things they said was that we're talking about natives in Neverland, not here, but nevertheless, why not take the opportunity to cast somebody of color when you have the chance?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's that whole thing. Honestly, I would probably just, if I wasn't watching for the podcast, I would just skip over that song, the Red Man song.
Yeah.
Because I don't like it. And then we have the mermaid scene, which is also another kind of cringy scene. Talk about
it's Mean Girls. Yeah. You know, Mean Girls on a rock is what it is. I mean, they're horrible.
Yeah, they want to kill her.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And Peter's just laughing. And then we get Peter mimicking Captain Hook. And this is a codfish on a hook. And the whole, like we said, the whole slapstick sequence in the cave is so funny and so well done that it's one of the highlights for me.
And that fight that Hook and Pan, you know, like the sword fight that they have in there too is I think exciting.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
And I guess Frank Thomas and Wolfgang Reitherman were the people who directed animated Captain Hook. So they're not the 9 old men for nothing.
Exactly.
Mark Davis, he said about the Indians, said that I'm not sure we would have done the Indians if we were making this movie now. And if we had, we wouldn't do them the way we did back then. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So then there's this whole scene with Hook kind of trying to charm Tinkerbell.
Which is also classic. I love how they animated Captain playing the piano with both his, you know, his fully functional hand, and then with his hook.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, you know?
And he promises not to lay a finger or a hook on Peter Pan.
That's right. Which he upholds,
Yes.
but, you know,
A
he's
bomb.
Captain Hook. He's sneaky.
Yeah. And then we have, this is when we get Your Mother and Mine. And again, beautiful, beautiful song.
It's a beautiful song, beautifully animated. It just, and, you know, it's just one of those quiet scenes. The pacing is so great in this movie, I think. And so, you know, it's just kind of a quiet scene. Yet also it's setting up that Hook is getting ready to drop the bomb, you know, on them.
Yeah, and so there's that kind of underlying in the background going on, which is good. And then we get, the song is called "The Elegant Captain Hook," but it's he has the whole Lost Boys all there, and they can sign up or they have to walk the plank.
They have they're showing their choices are not great. You either get to become a pirate or you get to walk the plank.
Yeah.
So what are they gonna do?
Join up with Captain Hook.
Yeah.
I like that song.
Most famous crook.
Yes. And I liked when they're all about to, and Wendy's like, honestly, you know, Captain Hook is most insistent, Wendy.
You know, they're very proper. Yeah, it's so cute.
And then we have Tinkerbell saving the day. This is her redemption because she finds out that about the bomb.
Yeah.
And so she goes and saves the day.
She saves Peter Pan. Mm-hmm. And this is where they, I guess, pay a bit of an homage to the play, right? Because you wonder if she's dead. You don't know.
Right.
You don't know. But she's definitely knocked out.
Yeah. When you see the play, they have Tink is like a laser.
A light. And then don't you applaud or something, and then it helps bring her back to life or something.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah. So then we have them walking the plank, and there's no splash.
Yeah, Wendy. No splash. Wendy takes the first one. She's the principled one.
And Hook says that he's no mere boy; he's a flying devil, and he calls Pan a coward. Then, so then they agree to fight man to man, and that's when he ends up pinning Hook down. He says, "I'll go away forever. I'll do anything you say. Say you're a codfish. I'm a codfish." And of course, in the end, he ends up running off with the crocodile. Smee!
Yeah, that's how it ends up. It is just so great.
Yeah, and then we get the "You Can Fly" reprise,
which is just one of the most, I think, magical moments. And I think they do a pretty cool job recreating that in the ride too. You know, where you got those fun lighting effects where the ship turns golden and flies. You know, because it's getting covered with pixie dust. But yeah.
Well, and when they see Wendy says, "I'm ready to grow up," and then they see the ship in the sky.
Her parents come home and they're all looking. Which and that I think is so beautifully done. The way that they draw that ship out of clouds.
That's Mary Blair, right?
I believe that. Yeah. And it looks amazing on the screen.
I agree. And that's when we get Second Star to the Right. So good. Yeah. So I this one, I have to say, I do feel like because of the problematic elements that if people were asked what's a Disney film you think is a little overrated, then I would say this one is one of the ones I would say. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. I can still like it. But I had it, my last ranking, I had it at 36. I had Hercules at 35 and Princess and the Frog at 37. And we're going to be doing once we finish with Encanto, we are going to be doing another episode where we're going to each have our own rankings, and then we're going to do a combined ranking. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
But I know you have this much higher than I do.
Yeah, I have it number 4. I mean, it's just one of my it's one of my favorites, and I get it. And I think also the older I get, and you know, rewatching it, Indian stuff is very cringeworthy.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But still, though, this was the movie of my childhood.
Yeah.
And I absolutely adore it. So yeah, I have it number 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We all have those special Disney. I mean, for me, definitely Little Mermaid is mine.
Exactly. It's kind of like My Little Mermaid in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go. We have some comments.
Yay.
On Twitter. We have Tisha AIM. She says, I love this Disney film. As a kid, I made an audio recording of the film and would listen to it as I went to sleep.
I love that.
That's so cute.
That's what I needed to try. I say I can't sleep. Bust out that soundtrack.
Yeah. Jacob Martin says, one of my personal favorites as a kid was blown away by the world building and imagination of the movie. And as an adult, I relate to the themes of growing up and childhood innocence greatly. Aside from certain aspects which haven't aged well, it's still one of my favorites. And then Matthew Decline, he says, most definitely a fun and creative film that I've come to enjoy more as an adult. Also, how could you not like the goofiness of the villains, especially Smee, or even Hook himself, or even the characters like Wendy and her brothers. I also liked the 2002 sequel. And that sequel, Return to Neverland, is one of the better.
You know what?
It's not that
one
bad.
Of the better of the cheapquels. I still hate it, but I hear you. Yeah,
it actually got a theatrical release. Like it's more of a. Yeah, it wasn't a direct to DVD.
Yeah,
yeah. That was one of the later ones that they did. So maybe that made a difference. Our friend Ryan, he gives it a 10, 10 out of 10. Then Nostalgia Cast says, it's Disney, so of course they sidestepped the sadder, more emotional underpinnings of Barry's play, which was subtitled The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up. But we do get a roguish, rollicking adventure instead, rightly regarded by many as the definitive adaptation of the story. And I do agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's the one I always do think of. Yeah, for sure.
I do like the 2003 version. It has Jason Isaacs. I get them confused sometimes. Jason Isaacs as Hook.
Okay.
Yeah. And that one's pretty good. That one's a good version. I'm not a huge fan of the Spielberg
I'm not
Hook.
a huge, I don't really care for that film at all.
And I know that a lot of people that was very, like, people that are like a little bit younger than me, I feel like is the sweet spot for that movie.
Yeah, I agree because they enjoyed it as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some good parts about it, but the whole Peter's grown up to be this businessman and is not my favorite. And the whole thing with his kid and everything, I just don't. And the Tinkerbell is terrible.
Julia
I hate that.
Roberts as Tinkerbell. That did not work.
But yeah, I think the first one I think of is definitely the Disney one. Yeah, but I actually haven't ever seen the Pan with the with Hugh Jackman. I've heard it's so bad. I never saw it.
Did not care for that.
Yeah,
it was painful. Yeah.
I mean, it's so weird that they included "Smells Like Teen Spirit." Like, what? Bizarre.
Yeah.
So there we go. That is what the listeners had to say. So our next episode, our final episode as far as the canon, will be Encanto, and we'll talk about that. That'll be our 60th episode, and it'll be a ton of fun. So let us know what you think. If you're listening, what you think of Peter Pan. Do you think it's aged? Do you still love it? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. And Stanford, where can people find you?
On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark. I have a movie podcast and blog at moviespastandpresent.com. And I also hope you'll follow me on Instagram, which is at moviespap, as in past and present.
Great. And you can make sure you're following us at Disney Talking on Twitter. We try to post on there every once in a while and have some fun. And then also make sure you're following me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. And make sure you're following the Hallmarkies podcast as well. We have a ton of fun over there, and we're covering all things Christmas right now. So take a look and check out the Patreon group. We sure appreciate that support. And we also have the merch store, which has hashtag Animation Junkie shirts, so designs, and we appreciate that support as well. So thanks so much, everybody, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.